Hello and welcome along to the Left Wing Back podcast. Some more bonus material for you this week. So on Wednesday evening we caught up with Kerry legend Kieran Donaghy. He was speaking at the Carlow Coaching Games Q&A session. We got some fabulous insight, we got raw honesty, we got a little bit of advice on how to coach players. We also got some very funny stories indeed. Good entertainment coming your way over the next 45 minutes or so. We begin by asking Kieran how he made the breakthrough and how he worked hard on getting onto the Kerry team, having struggled to make a breakthrough initially.
I was competitive. I was at it. I was trying to get in. I was trying to get in just in front of the management at every chance. I was trying to prove to them at every chance, every drill, every warm up. Anytime I felt that there was any of them watching me in a warm up, I was trying to execute all the skills. I was just trying to get in their eye line to get a chance. And then when they gave me the chance in the league game. And they kind of, it went well for me. And then Jack was kind of going, look, there's a chance there that you could be Dara's partner. So, keep doing what you're doing. And as soon as that bit of confidence started flowing in, we had a really good league. We won the league that year. We beat Laois in the semi-final. They had a great team with Noel Garvin and Clancy and Billy Sheehan and these fellas. And we went on to beat Galway in the Gaelic rounds, who had Joyce and Meehan. They had a fantastic team at the time. And it just meant that I felt I had a good footing winning a National League medal in the middle of the field for Kerry, partnering Dara. You didn't have to do too much to partner Dara, really. You could just concentrate on not getting beaten, because Dara wouldn't be beaten. So I used to tell myself, if you don't get beaten, we're going to win midfield, because Dara's going to win his battle on the other side. So it was very simple for me. I kept it very simple in my head and tried to help the team both as an offensive threat getting forward, but mainly my role when I was at midfielder was using my basketball kind of help defence IQ to be always helping. I told Mark in that league final and Thomas Sullivan, our two cornerbacks, I said, look lads, I'm going to be back there. Ye hold them up for as long as possible and I'll be coming to help. And I doubled an awful lot back that day, and they both remarked afterwards that it made their job easier. So I was just trying to kind of help every fella as much as I could, along with helping Kerry to win. But obviously not having to really set the world alight, because Dara was going to do that on the other side of me. So it was about being a good, solid partner for him. And I was that solid partner until I got sent off in the Munster final against Cork that year in 2006. And then after that, I ended up in full forward for the rest of my career.
Is that where you kind of wanted to be, or were you fussy about where you were playing?
I wasn't fussy where I was playing, because I knew I wasn't this kind of Kerry kid that was the star all the way along and was always going to play. I knew I kind of fought my way in there. So I didn't care once I was on the Kerry team, or Kerry panel first. But I had 2 years of being on the panel, and then I was really focused on trying to get on the team. So I wasn't too worried about where I played. It was, midfield is an easier position to play, because you can kind of get on ball. You're always competing for ball. You're always getting on ball. You can link the play. You can affect the game a lot. A big man in full forward requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of mental toughness, because you're going to lose more balls than you're going to win. So it's about when the ones you win, what can you convert them into? Can you convert that into goals? Can you convert it into points? Can you be fluent with the other forwards around you? Can you make those better? That was my main role in full forward. But it's a much tougher position to play 14 than it is out in the middle of the field, in my eyes, because you can kind of, even if you're not having a great game in the middle of the field, you can get on handy ball, you can link play, you can seem like you're having a big influence, even though you may be not. Whereas at full forward, there's no hiding place, really. The ball's gone in, you either win it or you lose it, and you're kind of judged on that, really, afterwards.
So kind of the general theme of the conversation is a Q&A in regards to coaching as well. We have lots of coaches obviously joining the call here to try to get some insight. And at the moment, a lot of coaches are reverting to basketball as a way of trying to, unlock defences and create space. Were you a little bit before your time in that? Would you kind of try to offer some ideas, even as a player, that you would have taken from your time playing basketball?
I wouldn't say I was ahead of my time anyway. It was, I was vocal. I did speak to all my managers. If I saw something and I felt it could help Kerry win in All Ireland, I would always go to them. Most of the time they take it on. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes I was wrong. But there was certainly lots of times in my career where I went to them with ideas. And in fairness to all the managers I had, they were very receptive towards that. And especially Eamon in the last few years of my career was brilliant with me that way. So yeah, there was the time where we were trying to get more scenario based training. So a lot of the times with Kerry, we'd throw up the ball and play in a big, gorgeous football, but there was no consequences for mistakes. There was no scoreline kept. There was no time in the game left. So your decisions are totally different in the last 5 minutes of a tight game than the first 5 minutes of the game. First 5 minutes, you'll put in the 50-50 ball. You'll take the chance. You'll gamble off the inside line. 5 minutes to go, depending on the score, you'll be doing either or. So I was trying to we did it with the Irish team with the basketball scenario-based training. So you'll be down 10 with 2 minutes to go. How do you try and get back into the game? Are you pressing up? Are you taking chances? Are you trying to work your way and get momentum to get back into the game? So yeah, we did certainly do a lot of that stuff as my career evolved. We started using some of that stuff more. But I think a team like Dublin now is really optimising both defensively, even more so defensively possibly, but in attack as well. They're using a lot of basketball traits, and they've clearly worked in them. The back door that Conor Callaghan gets constantly is a work of art, and I've seen it from cameras in the Sky Sports studio from way up high, and to see him setting his man up to the understanding of the half forward coming in, knowing he's going to go back door. There's a level of coaching there that's extremely high in Dublin, and a level of IQ in the players. But you have to show them, and you have to drill them, and you have to get them used to executing the skills, the hand pass over the top or executing the backdoor cut. So there is certainly now game management in football is a huge thing. Whereas if you look at any of the old games, even on Air Sport over the last few weeks, a team could be up 4 points with 10 minutes to go, and they're turning in their half back line and they're rifling a 50-50 ball 60 yards down the pitch. It's just it's completely turned now to where basketball, you're always thinking what's the score and what's the time. That's how you play the game. If you're losing, you're taking 3-pointers, you're taking risks, you're trying to get back into it, you're taking, in football terms, you're taking kicks from outside the 45, you're launching balls in on top of the square, try and get a goal. But if you're winning the game, then you're the opposite. You're minding it, you're overcautious, you're trying to be patient, you're trying to get it to the right areas, you're trying to draw free to set yourselves down. So game management is where I think basketball can help GA the most, is actually through game management and putting people in scenarios where they know what to do when there's 5 minutes to go in the game and they've got a 2-point lead. They know what they should be trying to do. And I think that's where, if you look at Dublin and every tight game they've played in the last decade, every tight game they've found a way to get out on top. And that's not by fluke. And it's not just as easy to say it's skill or it's power or it's fitness. They're all too easy to say. It's their level of IQ and it's the decision making down the stretch. And maybe their fitness levels might have a helping hand in how good their decision making is, but at the end of the day, they're winning games by making great decisions at vital times of the game, and that's the hallmark of the Dublin team, which is the greatest team to ever play the game. So they have a basketball influence in a lot of their stuff.
So in the past year, you've obviously come on board with the IT Tralee team in terms of Siggers and stuff. Are you enjoying the transition from player management and coaching and stuff like that? How different is it? How much of a challenge is it? Do you like it more? Do you like it less than playing?
Fair play for bringing up the Siggers in chat, considering Carlow IT kicked their arses inside in Tralee. But no, it was enjoyable. It's a bit tough because in Kerry you have the provincial or you have the North Kerry Championship, you have the South Kerry Championship, you have the West Kerry Championship, you have the East Kerry Championship, and they all have to happen after the county championship. So they always happen in kind of late November, December when you're trying to get ready for Sigerson. So we had a lot of our guys that were gone. We had a good few guys in with county teams that were gone. So I found it hard, but I really found it enjoyable working with the guys. And we did little stuff. We met we have a beautiful new centre of excellence in the campus in the IT and the Kerry Sports Academy. And it was a huge hall with 4 basketball courts going across, but it's massive. It's 100 by 50. So I was able to bring the boys in there and walk them through certain stuff we wanted to do on kickouts, on the opposition kickouts, where I wanted them defensively in relation to the ball. And we always did that at early in the morning at 7 o'clock on a Friday, where I knew even the county guys could get out of bed a bit early and just come in and at least be there with the lads and walk through, and they were brilliant. And David Clifford was our captain. He was outstanding. He was a massive influence on us that year. But we were a bit unlucky, and as in sport goes, things can turn and things happen in games and you lose. But I really enjoyed working with the guys. But the only frustrating part for me was actually try and get bodies there on a regular basis where you're not rehashing points, stuff you've done the Tuesday night, about a game in 2 weeks. You have to do it again on the Thursday because you have 5 fellas that come in and they mightn't be there. You can't do anything new because the guys that were there Tuesday aren't there because they're training with their club because they've got a game the weekend. So it was a bit of a, but every Sigerson manager will tell you that. Every Sigerson player will tell you that. It's very frustrating for them. And the one thing I was clear with the players is that I would not ring them and force them or try and talk them into playing. I said, if you've got a club game and you find that more important, I'm totally okay with that. You make your own decisions. I'm not going to be ringing fellas, talking them into playing or putting that pressure on them, because I was that guy as a player when I was trying to negotiate basketball and football, and I had people saying, oh, you shouldn't play this, you shouldn't play that. And it's very tough on the player at the end of the day. So I just left it very much up to themselves. But I got a great reaction out of them and really enjoyed it. And yeah, we got through some good stuff. But Carlo, in fairness, were outstanding, and their level of fitness was top class. And they outran us in the last 10 minutes of the game in Tralee, and went on to prove that they were a quality team by pushing all the way on to the final. So it was an enjoyable experience. That was a tough weekend for me because I lost that game on a Sunday, and I also lost the National Cup semi-final in the basketball on the Saturday night. So I was ready for a pint after that on Sunday evening, I can tell you.
I think a lot of people are ready for a pint now at this stage with all this going on as well. But look, I mean, you're enjoying it overall, though. I mean, I see some difficulties and I see some comparisons to what a lot of the coaches here might be feeling. It's okay, you have it from the third level point of view, but in terms of the people from clubs here that have county players as well, like, I'm just thinking of the coaches that are trying to implement, say, a game plan, trying to bring that across in training, but you're not seeing the guys. I mean, that must have been a great difficulty to you as well over that IT Tralee team, because really, like, I get what you're saying with the whole training load, but just to even talk through the plan and stuff, you need to be able to put that into practice. So I suppose that must have been a difficulty as well. Like,
it is, yeah, and it's a difficulty that county teams are gonna feel for the next 2 or 3 months while all the guys are playing club. But I think what the county teams will do, and I think what club managers in Carlow and Kerry everywhere should try and do, is when you have a team and you've got 2 or 3 fellas on the county squad, you know, you should try and talk to them about maybe once every 2 weeks. We're going to work the training where it's not on a night or a day that you're training with the county or playing with the county, but that you can come down and literally sit in for an hour, talk to the lads, and we'll do a bit of tactics, we'll do walkthroughs, we'll do video, and we'll try and make the most out of having them there, because their skill set and their fitness is taken care of what they're doing with the county team. So you're right, it's about game plans, it's about knowing where guys are. It's about knowing if you're pressing up on kickouts, where guys need to be, if you're back in a zone defence, where fellas need to be. And you can't do that if the guys aren't there and they're just rocking up the week before county championship. But, you know, I think what you'll see from county guys is you'll be training with the club, getting ready for county championship, but the county could be meeting 2 nights a week to go through walkthroughs, tactical stuff, kickouts, everything that you need to kind of really have covered in the modern day. So it will be tough, and it is tough on club managers not having their county guys, but I would say to them is try and organise it where you're not pulling and dragging out of the guy either, but you're kind of saying, look, listen, is there a day to suit you that I can call a session that you can come down, maybe watch the end of a bit of a session, and then we're going to go do a bit of video work and a bit of tactical stuff, and we'd love your input and we'd love you there, and the boys get used to what you see and what you're saying. So I think that's a way that clubs can go in the future, and it's probably the way county teams will go over the next 2 or 3 months, because a lot of county championships, the Kerry one isn't until the 11th of October or whatever. They're out the 17th of October with Kerry. So if you're in a county final, you need to be at the trainings with the club team. So if you're going to be ready for county football, you'll need to be meeting and falling in with the guys and at least knowing what you're about. And then you're hoping that the club training is at such a standard now that it's, you know, club training in GA now in circles in every county is up there with what county training was like 10 or 15 years ago. So the club training is still a very high standard of training, even higher than that. Probably club training is probably where county training was at maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So the county will always be slightly ahead just with the income and the finances and being able to have very good trainers in each county set up. You know, every club team mightn't have that, but as managers, I would say every club team is a manager that kind of knows what he's about now and knows what he's trying to get his team to do. So I think that will be important, that players are afforded the opportunity by both club and county managers to make sure that there's and that might be a big draw out in a guy. You know, that might mean a guy has gone 6 evenings from home. So if he's got 2 kids like I do, it's going to be pretty hard to keep everything on the go. But I think it's not unreasonable to get your guy down every week or every 2 weeks to go through your game plan and make sure he knows it, but more importantly that the guys see him there and feel like that he's tuned into them.
Yeah, we've got a big difficulty, I suppose, ahead of us in that things are going to get squashed, and lots of different counties are dealing with the fixtures differently, I suppose. The fact that we actually have an All-Ireland Championship this year, is that something that you're in favour of, or would you perhaps like to see provincial club championships instead and just forget about county till next year?
No, I think they're right in what they're trying to do. Everybody's getting a fair crack. I think it actually opens everybody's eyes that if we can get through this without any illness or without any stoppages or without any breakouts of the virus, it goes to prove that we need the GA to start thinking about the players, and the seasons don't need to be 11 months long, and people don't need McKenna Cups and McGrath Cups and National Leagues and Munster Championships and All-Ireland Championships. People don't need 4 competitions in a year. We should have a proper league, and we should have a proper knockout championship. And, the GA may take hit in some funds, but what you'll find is the club games will get club games might get higher viewership and higher numbers attending games, and that all goes back to the GA in the end. So, I think it is an opportunity to maybe look at things, that we always hear, we can't make the changes, it has to go through Congress. Well, this kind of proves that it doesn't have to go through Congress because they're able to go another way about it due to unforeseen circumstances. But, it shouldn't have to be for unforeseen circumstances to take players into account and say, okay, do we really need guys going here 10 or 11 months of the year? And in Kerry, to be quite honest with you, with guys when they're playing with West Kerrys and they're playing with their clubs and they're playing with Kerry, their season doesn't really end. It goes on. I know Brian. I've seen Brian Sheehan and Mark O'Shea and these fellas playing South Kerry and West Kerry finals on St. Stephen's Day, and be back in for the first Kerry meeting on the 6th of January or whatever. So they get a week off of their bodies. So I think we can really look at running both competitions, whether we run the All-Ireland more so as a starting in February with a league format that builds into a championship and it all finishes in July or August, and then your club scene kicks on. So if anybody gets knocked out, they have time off, they have time to take a breather from the sport. And I hope that'll keep more guys playing longer in their careers, because the way it's going now, I just can't see fellas playing till they're 35 or 36. There'll certainly be no more Stephen Cluxtons and the guys in this world that are going to play till their late 30s.
Right, so we have a number of questions to get through, Kieran, and one has just come in live on the chat there as well, which we will move to. But somebody has asked, what was it like marking Aidan O'Shea back a few years ago? How surprised were you to see him? And there was obviously a lot going on there at the time.
There was loads going on, absolutely. I was happy the first day. I did really well on him. I was happy with it. I thought it was, in my head, I thought it was a bad move by Mayo because he's so influential out the field for them and he moves them up the field so well. I just thought that he was a loss to them out there. But the second day, they worked on it. He got a bit of a. I'm sure Donaghy and these guys would have went over video work on him, and he was much better prepared the second day from me. And he beat me on the second day, and it was strange. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think they'd do it. There was rumours around beforehand that it might happen, but I just didn't think they'd do it. But it was a great battle. I loved it. I loved the competitiveness of it. I loved trying to kind of get out in front of him on the first day. And the second day, they did a great job of rotating men on me, so it wasn't solely Aidan O'Shea. His brother Seamus had picked me up, Donaghy Vaughan had picked me up, and what they were doing was they were taking off on runs up the pitch, and I had to follow them. And obviously, it was 1 run for them, but it was 3 for me. So I ended up doing a rake of running out to the sidelines and stuff on kickouts, and what they were doing was just pulling me out of position. So it was very good management from the Mayo backroom team that day, and yeah, they got the better of us. It was a very interesting battle, I'll put it that way, over both days.
The next question that comes in is, why did you lash out at him? And I'll double this up by asking, how hard was it not to lash out during your career? Because being on the square, you're obviously taking a lot of hardship, and lads are in your ear and all that. What kind of tipped you over the edge that day? And how difficult was it to not lash out a lot of times?
I lashed out twice in 2007, and Pat O'Shea was in his first game as manager. I was footballer of the year, and the first 2 league games I got red cards. I wasn't ready for what was coming at me. One was above in Cavan, where I had a defender that just hopped me for 30 minutes, and I couldn't do anything. He just belted off me. The umpire wasn't doing anything. Then I decided to look after it myself, and then I got sent off, and got sent off the week after as well. So I quickly realised that, okay, this is not the way to go. So I wrote it in my book that I just went from being, I was very passive, I felt, in those 2 games, and I was caught reacting twice, which is why I got sent off. So then I started thinking to myself, okay, let's start being the aggressor here. Let you go in and hop a shoulder off the full back, and you start pushing him and letting him know you're there, and maybe that might ease him off and back him off a bit, and you can go play. And if he wants to fight fire with fire, then go with that. But I started kind of in my head trying to be really on edge, hyper aggressive. That's what I needed to do for my team. We had all the footballers. We needed a focal point that was going to carry the aggressive edge to allow the good footballers around them. So I knew what my role was. I knew how to carry it out. And the Kieran Donaghy, I suppose, from then on the pitch would be a completely different to me off the pitch. But on the pitch, I felt I had to be that way, because if I went out soft and not ready, the fullback, it gave the impetus to the fullback to start hopping off me. And what happens is everybody that gets sent off, if you look at it, 90% of the times, it's the guy that reacts. So it's the guy that gets 4 rapid punches into the ribs and eventually throws an elbow, and the umpire sees the elbow, and the guy that throws the elbow gets off, but the guy that's been starting it has got away with it. So I kind of flipped it that way, and that's the way I went. So that's probably why people hate me so much that would have watched against me, because I was the fella on the other team that you just hated because he was a bit of a prick, and he was kind of hopping off people up forward, and I knew that, but that's still the way I had to play.
Yeah, and you said something very noteworthy in the book as well. When guys were coming at you, you would say, "Look here, if you keep at this, boss, I'm going to pull you to the ground. We'll both get a yellow. You're the defender." I mean, we're not kind of condoning ill discipline here, but it is very intelligent at the same time, because he's one tackle away from getting the P45, and you're the forward.
Yeah, if a fella was taking the piss and just being, like fullbacks can be, don't get me wrong, if I was a fullback, I'd be an absolute pest, because that's the way every good fullback needs to be. You need to be wired into your man. You need to let him know you're there. But there's some of these guys are over the top with it, and they're talking to you, and they're hopping off you, and they're waiting to get the reaction. And that's the road I would have tried with a few of them. Is kind of like, okay, lads, if you want to keep it that now, I'm going to have you in a headlock. We're going to be rolling around the ground. We're both going to be on yellow, and you have to be a lot more careful than I do for the rest of the game. So that often calmed them down and settled them a small bit, and you could just go about trying to win 50-50 ball off a fullback, which is hard enough without him hopping off you left, right and centre. So that was certainly a little tactic I tried to, but you'd have to be careful now in the modern day, because it's, if you pull a fella down to the ground, you could get a black card. So I retired at the right time, I think, because that black card wasn't suiting me come late in my career.
Next one up. So what motivated you mainly as a player, and was Joe Brolly a source of motivation in 2014?
Was he a source of motivation? He probably was, in a way. He wrote an article that said I was a 2-year wonder, and that, and this is 2014, where I've played in 6 or 7 All-Ireland finals, and I just found it disrespectful, and I found it Joe was always a decent fan of mine, so I said, Jesus, if Joe is talking like this, it's probably curtains for me. I was struggling with a bad injury at the time. I had osteopubis down by my groin area, so I couldn't kick the ball. I couldn't bring my leg forward, so I had to do a pile of work to try and get back from that. And maybe he was a bit of motivation in that he was writing me off. But that wouldn't have been a motivation in my career. I was never one that had a black card out or a black book for journalists or anything like that. I was always on edge because I had to be to stay on the Kerry team, because I knew that that's the way I just needed to play. So, I don't know what my motivation was to win, of course. And my motivation was to try and help my team win by being the best teammate I could be. Basically, that was always my thing, was about trying to be a good teammate and trying to do the right thing for Kerry to win the game. And thankfully, I felt I did that over my career. It doesn't work all the time, and you lose more games than you win, of course. But as a general rule of thumb, I felt it went okay.
Sure, there's plenty of all earners to show for it, and all stars and stuff like that. Next one up. Did Kieran notice much contrast between Eamon Fitz, who wasn't long out of retirement as a player himself, and in comparison to previous more experienced managers that you would have played under? And I suppose I'll add in a little bit the transition as well, because you would have been friends with him as a player, and next thing he's a manager. Like, that changes the relationship.
Yeah, I was good friends with him. He dropped me his first year for the Munster final, so the good friends tag didn't stick around too long, even though I always stayed very good friends with him throughout the career, through the droppings, and he dropped me for an All-Ireland final as well. So, but look, I'm a total kind of team guy. I always got that the manager wasn't dropping me for any reason. He was just dropping me because I wasn't going well enough. I may have been unlucky the year I was captain for the 15 final to be dropped. I felt they should have went with me that day. They should have known my big game experience, that I wouldn't let them down. They should have just took a punt on me that day as captain, you know. But anyway, you know, the contrast was interesting. But Eamon was a friend and was a teammate, but was very clear on his role as Kerry manager and his role to deliver for the people of Kerry. And friendship or anything else like that went out the window, and that's what made him a very good manager. And you know, there wasn't much, you know, he would have been a bit more, you know, slightly different to Jack, but you know, every managers as they go on, they're progressing, they're but like we had I was lucky enough to have great managers in Jack O'Connor, Pat O'Shea and Eamon Fitz, so I never felt like, you know, that a management was costing us anything, which is great, because I know some teams or players go through and they're not happy with the management. You know, I hope that's the clear difference. Not being happy because of a team point of view, because you don't think that they're going to get you over the line, or being not happy because they don't have time for you, or they're dropping you, or you're not getting a run. There's a big difference in that, and you know, I think the guys that sit around sulking and being a bad effect on the team because the manager isn't playing them, I you know, I wouldn't have any time for that. So when I was dropped, I was very positive, as hard as it was, not being able to tell my mom that I was dropped for an All-Ireland final, you know, her expecting me to be leading the team around in the parade, and only going to her the night before the game because I just didn't want her upsetting the stands, and kind of saying, look, Mom, you can't tell anybody I'm not starting the next day. I am named, but I'm not starting, and it's fine. I'm going to be coming on. I'm going to be in the game when the game's in the melting pot. So I think if you can get all the guys in your team, and I had a very good Russ Bradford taught me a great lesson when I was young. You know, he would have coached us in the Super League, but he would maybe start the worst guy in the team. He might start them in a big game in front of a big crowd in the complex, and he'd take him off after 3 minutes, because that's what you can do in basketball, and you can get a guy in and get a guy out. But he'd start them in a game that mightn't necessarily be the most important game, and you're never going to lose a game in the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But what he did is he started guys who were working really hard for him and training really hard, but didn't have the skill level and probably never had the ability to really make it, but that it was a very important cog in the team and that may have potential down the line to make it. So what he would do with that guy is he'd come up to him the day of the game and he'd say, look, you're starting tonight. And like, the guy would be blown away because he'd never think he was starting. He's the last guy in the roster. What Russ would do with that is, by starting that substitute or your number 30 on a football squad, by going to him and saying, look, I'm starting you tomorrow, you know, it's a league game and you've been going well in training, you're giving me a lot of effort and I'm going to give you a chance. And if it doesn't work out for him, he's always going to remember you for that, and he's always going to work hard for you because you were willing to put your neck on the line for him and give him the chance. So I think sometimes we're very routine into the best team all the time and the best 15 take the pitch and this and that. I think there's certain games where you can reward guys on your panel for work they're doing. And if anybody on the team has an issue with that, you sit them down, you explain to them, this is the reason I did it. I feel that guy is important to us and how we prepare this year as a team, and I wanted to reward them. You got the hard side of it because you were dropped for them, but just show me that you don't want to be dropped again in the next training session and we'll be fine. You'll be back in, there's no problem. But you're keeping guys on their toes, you're promoting guys through the ranks that maybe mightn't be expecting it. And after that promotion through the ranks, they go away and they start working harder and they start going to the gym more and they start looking at their diet more, because now they feel like, Jesus, this fella could throw me in at any time. Like, I wasn't expecting that. So that was a great lesson for me. I used that a few times this year with guys in my Sigerson Cup, and you can visibly see the pickup. You know, it's not about the 15 guys that are starting. It's about your attitude from the guys from 15 back. If they're not giving it to you, if they're not bought in, if they're not all into your program, you're gonna come up short every time. And if you can somehow bond the group together, give fellas a chance, give fellas a bit of game time. Don't be so regimental in your selections. Try and not look at every game as a must-win, and try and look at games that are must-win. Try and look at the games that are must-win games more. You give them more concentration, and you really build them up. But if you try and build every game up like it's a huge game, and you start with best team and we have to win every game, that gets a bit old as the season goes on. So I think you can maybe dovetail it a bit better to give guys that mightn't necessarily be of the level to really play, but that they are very important to your setup and your squad. They might be great guys speakers. They might be inspirational guys in the dressing room. You want to keep them engaged, and sometimes you have to think outside the box on how to keep them engaged. And I would say that over the years, the management we had, that's a bit newer wave. Or Russ certainly brought that to the table more so than any other manager I had. But I was very lucky, as I said, in Kerry, to have 3 guys that I could trust, that I could go to, that I could talk to, and that I felt had my back. Even when they were dropping me, I felt they were doing the right thing for the team. And once I felt it was the right thing for the team, I could take it. As disappointed as I was, and as pissed off as I was, you can't let that infect into the group. You can't have people walking around their tippy toes on you. It's creating a bad vibe everywhere. You have to somehow put on a brave face, get in there, try and show them that they're wrong, try and wait for your chance. But it's all about taking chances. Life and sport is about when you get a chance that you've put in the work, that you're ready to take it. And the guys that generally take the chances are the guys that have put in the work. So it's a vital part of management, trying to keep your whole squad on track. It's even with the basketball team this year versus the team last year. We had so much more camaraderie last year. There was so much more positivity. Guys were better with each other. This year there was a bit of, bitching going on. Fellas weren't happy with certain stuff the coaches were doing. Coaches weren't happy with some of the stuff the players were doing. It was a bad vibe. Fellas were on tippy toes. Fellas were awkward around each other. Fellas were awkward inside in training. And it's a really tough season. You can still be successful if you're good enough and you're talented enough, but it's never as good as the scenario where everybody's pulling together and everybody's on the same wavelength, and you don't have guys moping around the place feeling sorry for themselves because they're not on the team.
Is it fair to say you might see yourself more as a manager then than a coach? I mean, you're gathering a lot of information from those guys that coached you, and then you have the basketball side. But is it the on-field stuff, taking the sessions, or the actual management side where you're dealing with the players on a personal level that you think you might enjoy more? Where do you see yourself going when it comes to management?
Management all day. I'm not a coach. I am a guy who could be. I feel good with groups of people, getting them to kind of tie in together, getting them to pull in one direction, leading by example. Whereas the cones and all these drills, that doesn't float my boat. I love to watch a good coach in action and be able to come in and interject and say, guys, I saw you do this, and actually do a bit of coaching to a group of guys, but then get out of the way again and let the coach take over. I'd be much more on the in my head in a way. I prefer to be a manager because I prefer the whole dealing with people, coming up with game plans, trying to think of things that'll throw opposition off, how to defend a bit differently, how to attack differently. Certain areas that teams are very good at, trying to get that stuff and trying to implement it. That would be more. I'd have a much better, I think, talking to a coach, talking what he wants to do, what I want to do, coming up with good drills, letting him take them, and just being the guy that observes who are the guys that are putting it in, who are the guys that are tuned in, who are the guys that are executing the skill set, who are the messers, who are the guys that aren't bringing anything to the session really. And then would be my goal to make them off that night in person, preferably. I always think that's better, and say, look, I watched you tonight in the drills. You aren't at it. You just weren't at it. You were just, you were away. You were somewhere else. So I don't know if anything's going on at home, if you're okay. But if everything's okay, I just need you more tuned in for a session, and I need every drill you do to try and do it to the max, because that's the way you play the game. When the game is on, everybody's running around to the max. There's no reason why people should be in a training session moping about and not doing things right. You have to train at your max so that the games are easier.
Good stuff. Right, so let's combine these next couple together. We have a question in asking who's the best stacks player you ever played with. That's a Kerry man. I would anticipate asking that one. I'll ask you who's the best stacks player you played with, who is the best Kerry player you played with, and then your toughest opponents, both club and county.
Oh, the stacks. Stacks is a tough one. Probably William Kirby's is probably the most inspirational teammate that I would have had. Daniel Bohan and Mikey Collins would be another two Dara Long guys I soldiered with for most of my career, I suppose, at club level. But Kirby was an enigma. He still is an enigma. He's 6 kids. He's coaching the under 12s. He's coaching under 14s. He's coaching Glenbeigh. He's down helping in the club. He's painting walls. He's an amazing man. When we were getting ready for the 2014 county championship, the boys went to we were doing gym sessions at 6 o'clock in the morning in the club. And the boys came at 6 o'clock and nobody had keys, but there was a window open upstairs. And William went away and got the ladder, and he's a plumber. He got the ladder off the van, and the ladder was up, and there was Kirby, 40 years of age, with 4 or 5 kids at home at 6 o'clock in the morning, climbing up a ladder and not doing what most of us would do, possibly me included, and kind of go, there's no keys. Jesus, 6 o'clock, so we'll belt away home, lads. We'll do it another day. You know what I mean? His answer was very much, we're getting in here, we got to get this work done. And on the pitch, he could be erratic at times and he could get sent off at times, but I never met a more competitive animal than him. And just a tough operator and a tough cookie, and went under the radar. Won 2 All-Irelands. I think he might have 3 All-Irelands. Actually, I know he injured for one of them. But just an incredible player. The county is hard as well. Like forward-wise, we Gooch obviously was elite in his own level. Declan Sullivan on the 40 yards was a wizard. Could play anywhere. Darragh O'Shea. I played with some unbelievable backs, and when we were winning All-Irelands consistently and been in finals consistently, we had, even though we wouldn't have had the greatest defensive setups, and I often wish that we would have had been more defensive setups, because it wasn't seen as the thing to do in Kerry, but we lost all Irelands that we shouldn't have if we were a bit smarter defensively, because the defenders we had was off the charts. The Tom Sullivans, the Mark O'Shea's, the Mike McCarthy's, the Aidan O'Mahony's, the Tomas O'Shea's. They're backs that should have been running riot and never under pressure. If we maybe helped them a bit more and tracked back and had more of an idea about how to defend that way. The backs that we had were amazing and were the real reason we were in All Irelands as much as we were. It wasn't me and Gooch and Galvin and these fellas. It was our backs that were giving us a real platform to get up the pitch and deliver. So I don't know. It's hard to stick with one. It's hard to stick with one Kerry teammate because they're all so different and they added so much in different ways. But it's hard. I can't really answer who's the best one of them on a kind of inspirational maybe in the dressing room and in the training ground. Declan O'Sullivan on game day, he was unbelievable on all the big days as well, and could carry the fight and could play it every way you want, could go back and be a dog, could be up full forward, taking you on, kicking points, could score goals, and a really good teammate. But we were lucky we had lots of those as well. But it's probably a long-winded answer, but it's probably hard for me to settle on one guy out of what they're probably 40 or 50 Kerry teammates I had over 15 years.
Right. A couple more to get to. We have one saying, I've been watching Kerry every year since the games against the Dubs in the mid-70s. Maurice Fitzgerald is the greatest Kerry forward I have seen. Would you agree with that? Did you see him play much? And if not, who is the greatest Kerry forward that you have seen? Apart from the
I'm fairly far down the pecking order on that list, but I would say it's hard to argue with Morris. We've our own man Nastin Stacks, Mikey Sheehy wasn't bad. You've the great John Egan from South Kerry, who wasn't bad either. From Sliam, you have the Gooch, James Donaghy, the new kid on the block, this Clifford kid, who's I only played with him for a year, but he's going to be pretty special. Kind of like Morris in a way, a languid style, an absolute elite kicker off both legs, off the ground or off his hands. And but it's hard to argue with Maurice Fitz. I played against him. I played against him in a county league final. I marked him for 60 minutes. It was one of the highlights of my younger days in a club jersey. He was God down here at that time. I was in the Nally stand in '97 when he kicked the 9 points against Mayo and put on an absolute show. So, there's guys going back further than the 70s too. But Maurice Fitz is I'm not going to argue too much on Maurice Fitz. I was doing the Kerry Mount Rushmore and off the ball the other day, and I didn't have either Maurice Fitz, Gooch, Mikey Sheehy or David Clifford on it because I couldn't differentiate between the four greatest 13s that Kerry have ever had. So I couldn't put one of them in, because if I could put one of them in, I'd actually probably just put four of them in, but then you'd be leaving out Mick O'Dwyer and Mick O'Connell and these fellas. So I went in the end with not actually selecting any of those guys because I couldn't. I said they should have their own mountain in Kerry and put statues of the four of them up on top of the four peaks.
Are you enjoying the punditry actually, just on that topic? Because I know you're with OTB, you mentioned Sky Sports, and how that's obviously a bit of fun, like.
Absolutely, yeah. It keeps me engaged in the game. I get unbelievable footage. I get to see every game from 4 or 5 different angles at night time, so it's lovely for my seeing what certain teams are doing and trying to add that to my catalogue of kind of what I would like to do if I was in charge of teams. So it's really good. It's really enjoyable. Sky have been brilliant. Myself and Canavan's so good to work with. He's a class act, obviously a legend on the pitch, but boy does he know his stuff when it comes to video work and analysis. And that's all we said about this. The Sky analysis is so good. All we have to do is try and get more people watching us, which is obviously an issue with people having to pay for Sky Sports and all the rest. But the days that the games are on, we've had some great games, and he's been brilliant to work with. And after the off-the-ball crew are so good to be with as well. And in fairness to Gerard and the boys, they approached me kind of 2 or 3 years before I retired and said they'd like to talk to me when I retire and stuff. So I was always very relaxed with the media, and I wish somehow we could get the players and the county boards and everybody just to relax about the whole kind of, you can't talk to the media and you can't do this and you can't do that. I think it's we're not getting the feel for guys. We're not getting their personality if they're trained to talk and their answers are single monotoned and their messages they're told to send out before they go to the press conference or whatever. I look at the Aussie Rules as a great model. If you look at the Aussie Rules, they're really good. The interview guys coming off at half time, it's a directive obviously from the TV channels to the AFL. Can we do this? And then the AFL say to the clubs, listen, this is what we have to do. We have to, so if the GA said to the county managers, listen, one of your players is going to be interviewed coming off at half time, you might get something real off a guy coming off at half time. And if you say, Jesus, Kieran, you're down 5 points, what's going on? I'd say, geez, I don't know, it's tough out there in the middle of the field, but we have to keep digging in. We maybe have to get better in breaks. You're getting a more live kind of response to a guy. So I think we could do some stuff like that to maybe, let fellas express themselves and let fellas be themselves and not be so, regimental about how you're dealing with the media. Because I honestly was really comfortable with and some guys aren't, and that's fine. If you're not, you don't want to do it, that's no problem at all. But guys that are comfortable talking and don't have an issue with it, I just don't think there should be so much of an issue made out of it. I think it's this whole thing of, don't do the interview because if you play bad the weekend, everyone says, he did an interview for the Sunday Independent last week, so that's why. So how would he play well? That old carrot, I think Joe Canning put that to bed when Galway won the All-Ireland. He had a big 2-page spread the day of the final with Vincent Hogan. And you could see the stuff going on Twitter. It's a big article the day of a final. And Joe went out as always and was the man and led his team to an All-Ireland. And I was delighted because I said at least that bullshit can't be put to him afterwards. If he did lose, was that a reason? Because it's such nonsense that a fella doing an article that could possibly affect how he plays on the pitch is nonsense to me.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that, actually. I'd love to see lads doing it more. I don't actually get why there's such an anxiety there among managers and stuff. Just don't give out in the way. Sure, like, you're not going to... People are not stupid. They're not going to go and tell everyone the game plan anyway. It's just a bit.
Well, there's so much video work done on teams now. Anyway, for fuck's sake, if you're an opposition team and you don't know what the other team like to do in this day and age with the footage you can get, you probably shouldn't be in the position.
Yeah, we're getting near the end of our header here. We have about 5 minutes left. I know you have to head away at 8 o'clock. A message in from Sean Gannon. Would Kieran be interested in intercounty management? I know of a vacancy.
I tell you one thing, your man Turlough O'Brien, in fairness to him, he did a hell of a job down there, and I don't know what the reasons are for him stepping away. I'm sure he has them. The demands on a county coach in this day and age are excessive. You're signing up to a lot. You're signing up to be ridiculed. For most teams, there can only be one Dublin, or there can be one team that is ultimately happy at the end of the year. Everybody else finishes with disappointment. So it's not an easy job, but he's done an amazing job with that team, and nobody wanted to head to Carlow to play in league games. And he put up some great performances. Most notably, the one I remember clearly is the way they put it up to Dublin for about 40 minutes, I think, one year. And you could see the passion of the players. They really were playing for him. So he will be a loss for Carlow, but it's probably too early for me in my eyes now for management. I was approached about one or two things last year, but I didn't. I want to be fully sure that I'm ready. And even with work with the company and with PST Sport, we do the artificial pitches around Ireland and the UK, and we're at a position where that's growing rapidly. And my role as business development manager is very demanding in travel and time and meeting people and getting quotes and getting pitches over the line. That it's perfect. Like, even Eamon there as a school teacher, he's 3 months off in the summer. He's all day to be figuring out stuff. He's all day to be ringing guys, keeping guys in the loop. Whereas I'd be afraid that, I hopefully the way PST is going, in a year, maybe a year or two, I could have a guy underneath me that would do a lot of the travelling, and we'll say the miles and the early meetings, and maybe leave some of the final meetings, the meetings that get the pitches over the line. I could go with him then, and maybe have more time to be a manager of any team, club or county. It's a huge demand on your time, and if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You got to be bought into it. You got to get the guys on board. They got to know you're for real, because if you're not, they see through that straight away. So I want to make sure that I am in a position to give it my all and be able to do it. And I also have two lunatics downstairs that keep me on my toes on a regular basis, especially one. The younger one is mental, so it's she is keeping me very much on my toes. So no, I know there's a vacancy going, and I haven't been approached, and that's not why I'm on this, just in case he starts jumping to conclusions. But no, I wish them well in there, but there'll be big shoes to follow in the job that Turlough has done for ye over the last number of years. So I'd just like to congratulate him on his time, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him back there someday in the future in some capacity.
Absolutely, he's done a great job. So you don't fancy you crack a Galvin and blow Wexford then?
No, I don't think the people of Leinster want to see two billy goats going at it up the sideline. But no, I've been impressed with what Paul's done down there this year, and I've been down there quite a bit with work. And even though there was initial kind of skepticism over guys stepping away and guys being dropped, he very much has them, going in the right direction. And he's had a few big wins in the league, and he's done well on a bit of occasions. So look, I wish him well, but I know Paul lives in Dublin, and Wexford to Dublin is, I don't know, maybe an hour. Whereas coming from Tralee, it's a bit of a longer journey.
Yes, some fabulous insight there from Kieran Donaghy, and some great stories along the way as well. Great to get that level of honesty, has been a feature for all the podcasts so far on the Left Wing Back podcast. That's really it for now. We're out again Monday with the latest edition of My Time in the Gansey. Do stay tuned, don't forget to subscribe, and as I said before, don't forget to leave the rating. Until then, take care.